I don't know if this is still actually making the rounds, but there have been points in recent history where the idea that the Earth is overpopulated with humans, and that's having dire effects, and that it's killing us all off. Is that still a notion that's around? And if so, what do you think? How would you answer that? Would you agree, or would you respond?
Well, it's still around, especially in the green fringe. If I can, the deep ecology, the Gaia side of things, where you'll find papers written comparing humans to cancer, where you'll find environmentalists making the claim that a massive die-off of humans would be a good thing, and in fact it's our duty to bring it about. None of them, of course, ever volunteer, but certainly that's still there.
National Geographic, latest issue, we're hitting 7 billion. Well, they don't come explicitly and say 6.9 billion of us shouldn't be here, but it's still, they're trying to convey that panic and so on. Yeah. There's too many of us.
A nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, as evangelical Christians, who believe the Bible, God said to go out and reproduce and fill the earth. Have we filled it?
I don't know the answer to that question, and I think that falls in the same category as the one I raised a while ago. How small a footprint should we have? It's part of the same issue. But I don't want to be too cavalier in tossing away this idea that overpopulation is not a problem. There's a different way of looking at that I'd like to introduce that's uniquely Christian. There are a lot of things that we've talked about that are not uniquely Christian, but we have some insight to or a basis for the values. But this is one that I think is uniquely Christian, and that is the problem of sin. And the problem of sin as it relates to our human impact on our environment. And the solution of redemption through Jesus Christ, and what environmental impact might that have, and how might that theological discussion change the way we frame this issue of overpopulation and the impact of people on the earth. I think that Scripture tells us that God's given us the resources that we need to thrive if we manage them and exercise dominion in the way He intended. And yet we realize that we can't do that as well as He intended in our sinful state. And even in a regenerate state, we have great difficulty and challenge doing that. And so that gives us an opportunity as Christians to think through the theological implications of some of these environmental issues, and also maybe reconsider how we present Christianity to the world, and how we behave in such a way that they perceive Christianity's impact on the world to overcome things like the white discussion that environmental crises are the fault of the Christians because of the dominion concept. We need to turn that around and really rethink that and live in light of the way we rethink that.
That's a wonderful penultimate comment. I'll give you the ultimate comments. Any last words on this topic? I know we haven't covered very much at all really in our short time together, but do you have any final things you'd like to say?
Reading Scripture from the perspective of understanding that we are stewards of the world we're in, we are God's vice regents here on earth, gives us a certain perspective about how we use resources, how we interact with the environment, as well as how we interact with people. We have a responsibility in the way we use the environment, the way we interact with it, that is true, that is obligatory, no matter what our political views, no matter whether or not global warming is true. And we should understand that as a biblical mandate, totally apart from politics, totally apart from scientific controversies. I think that in the past, if the church had taken more seriously what Scripture had to say about the dignity of human beings, for example, Christians might have been much quicker to protest slavery. If we had, we might have averted the Civil War. We might have averted the consequences of racism that are still in our society. This may be a similar thing. If Christians took it more seriously, our responsibility as stewards, environmental stewards, maybe we could avert some of the ecological damage that we see taking place around us.
Gary, you know, I sat in your environmental ethics class a couple of years ago, and you pointed me to a section of scripture that I hadn't looked at before in light of this discussion, and that was the last several chapters of Job. And it changed my thinking on this topic and impacted my heart as I saw the heart of the Creator reflected in the way he described his creation that he took pleasure in. And that changed me. And so I would offer that as a point of encouragement to Christians listening, is to read the last few chapters of Job and think about how God thinks about creation, and then think about what our responsibility is in light of that.
Well, thank you so much for those final words, and thank you for this time together.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.